How we doing, everybody? It looks like we have everybody here. I'm sure we'll have a few more people joining us here as we go. And we'll get started. We don't want to take too much of your time this evening. We appreciate everybody joining us. Um, should be some good information. We have Brandon Gotkin with the Youngstown Phantoms, Clint Milamach with the Maryland Black Bears, and then Rob Rod with the NCDC Mercer Chiefs. If we can ask you, please mute your microphone. So really quickly, we'll just do a quick overview really on the three levels of junior hockey, and then we'll turn it over to the coaches. Just so everyone is aware, you have tier one hockey, which everything is covered financially for the players. You have major junior tier one in Canada, which the players also receive payment. Those players are not eligible for NCAA hockey. And then we have tier one USHL and the United States, which is the United States top junior league. These players, everything is paid for, equipment, housing, all of that good stuff. And these players are eligible for NCAA hockey. And then you have tier three hockey, junior hockey, which is tuition-based hockey, which you'll have players, they will have to pay for the season. Tier three level is really for players looking to develop and advance to the tier two level of junior hockey, or older players looking to advance up the ladder to NCAA Division III hockey, or really ACHA Division I hockey. Now, on that, we'll turn this over to Brandon just to tell us a little bit about the USHL and the Youngstown Phantoms.
Hi, everybody. My name is Brandon Gotkin. I'm the assistant coach with the Youngstown Phantoms. Just wanted to thank everybody for taking a couple minutes out of their busy evenings to have this great presentation. So just a little bit about the USHL. It's the only tier one league in the United States. And kind of just how Blake was talking about the CHL, that's kind of our main competitor when it comes for, drafting players and acquiring players. So everything in the USHL is paid for our guys. That's housing, bill of fees, equipment, all of that stuff, food, travel, everything's paid for. So there's there's no fees, which I know a lot of parents are happy to hear about. And our league is a draft league with also two tenders, and I know we'll get into it probably a little bit more with Clint. But a tender agreement is basically a contract, just signing that us as the Youngstown Phantoms and your son would be agreeing to play with us for the following year. So each team's allotted two tenders every year. So that's any 2008 birth year for this year. And then there's two parts to our drafts. We call them phase one and phase two. The first day is phase one, and that's comprised of only the 2008 birth year. And then phase two is the 2008 birth year with the 2004 birth year. So everybody in between those two birth dates is draft eligible. And as long as you're not on anybody else's protected list in the USHL, you're able to get drafted. It's nothing that you have to sign up for, anything like that. We have a pretty extensive scouting network here in Youngstown. So, probably any given weekend, you're going to bump into somebody in the rink and watching your sons play. So it's a little bit unique, a little bit different, a little bit more of a pro model with our league, just in terms of, the drafting and tendering process and stuff like that. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Oh, Blake, I think you're on mute there.
Sorry about that. Yeah, can you tell us a little bit about the USHL Combine? I know that's really a big part of players that, that 14, 15, 16 age, really looking to participate in that.
Yeah, so the USHL Combine, like Blake just alluded to, is those birth years, and that's an invite only. And basically it's every team in the USHL. So I guess actually 15 teams, excluding the National Development Program, will have a representative, either a coach or a scout of some nature there. And it's basically a showcase before our drafts to kind of identify, any last minute players or future players And for us in Youngstown, we've had a fair amount of success with those combines and identifying some players. I wouldn't say it's the end all be all by any stretch, but it's a great opportunity and something that if your son's invited to, I think it's definitely worth going to.
Yep. That's good info. So what we'll do is we'll keep moving along with Clint here to talk a little about the NHL, and then at the end we'll open it up to questions for all the coaches. So Clint, we'll turn it over to you and tell us a little bit about the NHL.
Okay, there we go. We're the North American Hockey League. First of all, thanks again for being here. Sorry. Firstly, we appreciate it. There's a lot going on and a lot to digest, but there's a lot of good information on here and some guys with some great backgrounds. And with the North American Hockey League, it's 32 team league right now. They'll be expanding to a couple more by next year. And we're based from like Alaska all the way through to the Atlantic region, East Coast. And we play 60-game schedule. We're a draft league as well with 7 tenders, so a little different than the USHL. We're a bit older than the USHL, but we do have a draft. We have a 30-man roster that we start with at the beginning of the season, and then by October 1, it gets down to 24. Our players are billeted with host families, so we don't have more than 2 players per home. We do a really good job here, and it's kind of a lifeline to a lot of programs, to good programs. So we find it to be very important and we value it. So kids are in good homes. We have an interview process where they can't just show up and here's your home. Like we actually vet the players. We do Zoom calls with their billet coordinator and the players and the parents to figure out what a good fit is. We have our 30-man protected list down to 24 by October 1. This year, our birth year range is 06 to 03. Next year, it'll be 07s to 04s. We're a development league, just like the other leagues, with the mandate to be competitive. And our goal is to always get kids commitments, which in the last 3 years, we've had the most in the North American Hockey League. And that's a big goal of ours, is to be competitive and move kids on to school. And the other part of it all is a synergy between the USHL, EHL, NCDC, get that vertical integration you're going to hear about a little bit. But our youth teams are tied in directly to our program. In fact, we have a lot of kids that skate with us from a lot of the programs through Black Bear Sports Group. So we know the kids that we draft and tender, and we don't just do it based on an advisor or reputation. Like we want kids that we know to play here, and we've done a good job the last few years with kids from our program. So we really stress that we want the right kids from programs that we're involved with, and we've done a good job of that the last few years. But once again, the main goal is getting these kids to university, and we're very well connected and work hard at it.
Yep, and also, I know the draft and tender is obviously a big part of building the roster, and heading into the spring summer. I know a big part of the North American Hockey League is building through some of the camps in the summer. Can you tell us a little bit about that process? I know it plays a big role as a lot of players. You kind of look to get those spots.
Yeah, so there's open camps through our team and also through the league, so kids can come in as free agents, and it's mandated that we have scouts at all these events. So there's a lot of ways to get into the door of one of our programs and with the Maryland. So we've gotten kids that are strictly free agents at an open camp, at a league camp, at one of our open camps. We've had kids show up to our main camp that are invite only and made our team, that they weren't drafted or tendered. Our captain last year was one of those kids who was an unknown coming to camp, made our team, and by year 3 he was our captain. Now he's at RPI. So there's a lot of avenues or ways to get into Maryland and be seen and be scouted, and not just our camps, but league camps as well. So there's a lot of ways to get those doors open and be evaluated for sure.
Yep. I know that question comes up quite a bit with a player who isn't drafted or tendered early, and then looking to find the right camp to go to.
Yeah, I think that's the one thing about our camp that I stress to advisors, parents, and kids. Like, and we do this every year. Like, kids that come to our camp, it's not just I didn't make Maryland, so what do I do now? Like, we help place kids. whether it be our EHL team, NCDC teams. Like we help kids go, move on to maybe another program, and we still watch and evaluate. We've got kids in our team this year that were in Mercer last year. So that's something that we pride ourselves in too, is like there's an open dialogue between Youngstown. We've got kids from the Youngstown camp that are with us that are main players, and that they'll be in Youngstown next year. Mercer has kids with them this year that we'll have next year, and vice versa. So there's a lot of synergy with how we operate our programs, and obviously the coaches allow us to scout or help each other out. So, and we've all had success. If we look at our programs top to bottom, they're all competitive. They move kids on to higher levels and also to schools, and we all work together really well. So that's our advantage as our program in Maryland. Is I love the fact Brandon or Rob or whoever's at our camp in June, and if kids don't make our team, it's not the end of the road. We can help push them somewhere else if they're the right fit.
Yep. Always avenues and places to play.
Yeah.
Clint, do you have anything else to add?
No, I think the main thing is, our league's highly competitive. The way where we're located is great for colleges. We have schools at every game. We have NHL scouts at our games too. We also provide, equipment for players. We don't do skates, but we do, gloves, helmets, pants, sticks. So there's not a lot of costs. There are billet fees, but we have our own weight room where we train 3 days a week. We have 2 sheets of ice. We have skill coaches come in and work with our players. To me, this is like an ideal spot for the real hockey players. So we own the building we're in, so we get to set the precedent on our ice times, practices, and what we do within our building. We get to run things basically how we see fit that benefit our players, from the weight room, video room, to the 2 ice services. So it's a great place to develop.
No, for sure. And then we'll move to Rob here with the NCDC Mercer Chiefs.
First off, thanks a lot, Blake, and thanks for everyone for being on this call. So I'm the general manager and coach of the Mercer NCDC team, and I know there's a lot of acronyms in hockey. So NCDC is National Collegiate Development Conference. It's one of 2 Tier 2 junior leagues in the U.S., along with the NAHL, which Clint just spoke about. It's an 18-team league. 12 are on the East Coast, and this year we added 6 in Central U.S. So it gives a lot of great exposure to all the schools on the East Coast, and now we're moving out west a little, which is really good for the league. It's fully paid, tuition-free, outer equipment, sticks, and the billet fees are the one fee. And at Mercer, we've really we have some great billet families that are mostly families that have kids who play for the youth teams. So it's really awesome to see these kids, really the bond that they have with our players. It's really cool stuff and really pretty special. We have kids from all over, North America or all over the world. We also, just like the NAHL and the USHL, we have 12 tenders that we have. We also have 2 THF tenders, which are exclusive to the THF, which is great. We've got a couple of good players from the league this year, so I'm really excited about that. Our draft is on May 13th. We have one draft. It's 2008 and 2007 birth year players, so it's a young draft. We have our main camp is July 29th. It's invite only. It's 2007s and up. If any of you out there have players that you think are good hockey players and would like to be considered, you can certainly contact me. Along the lines with what Clint spoke about, I think the great thing with Black Bears is we just don't talk the talk, we walk the walk as far as the ladder of development. Like Clint said, we have a few Mercer Chiefs on Black Bears this year, and also the EHL, which I don't know if we're going to touch on, Blake, which is a Tier 3 junior league, which is a really good league. It's tuition based, but we're going to have a team in Iceland next year, an EHL team. you know, and I know there'll be a lot of movement between EHL, NCDC, NOL, and even, you know, up to the USHL, which is just a fantastic opportunity for all these guys. So, trying to think if there's anything else. We have a 24-man roster. After our main camp in the end of July, we have about 30 to 32 players, and then right after Labor Day, we cut it down to 24.
When do you guys have multiple showcases in NCDs, or you guys do one showcase
In season or spring and summer?
in season?
Yeah, we have a couple.
Yep.
We have 3, 2 in Boston, and 1 was in Wayne, New Jersey this year.
Yeah, and then how many? Because you guys do combines as well.
We do. We have 3 combines this year. Last year it was 2. It's Chicago, Michigan, and then this year we added a 3rd one in Boston. And I can get the dates for you, Blake. I don't have them on me now,
no.
but they're posted all over the place, and they're good. We have to have representation there, so you know, it's a good way to be noticed.
Yeah. Do you guys find a lot, you know, a lot of kind of free agent players as well? Obviously, you know, very similar to North American Hockey League, you have that big tender process and draft process. You know, running camps on that. Have you had a lot of success finding kids really through those camps as well?
You know, we had like our first, this is only Mercer's 2nd year and as a junior program, and last year we started out with an ID camp, and we really worked hard and we have great scouting staff with, you know, Youngstown, Maryland, Mercer, the whole Black Bear scouting staff. We had an ID. It was basically an open camp, and we actually had a couple of players that made the team, which was really great to see. And I think even Clint, that first year, I remember with Maryland, we had a couple of open camps and some really good players showed up.
Yep.
So, no, and these combines, listen, if you're a good hockey player, you're going to be noticed because there's good hockey people who will be at them. Every team has scouts there, has coaches there. So, if you're a good hockey player, you're going to be found.
Yeah, for sure.
The one thing I can say about all of our camps too is like they're scouted. We actually keep stats, keep notes. So like there's always feedback for especially young kids that want the experience to come to one of these camps. Some come to our camp because they want that experience, and you know, I think it's good for them to get that, and then also to get feedback from the scouts that are in attendance. So we like to say, if you come to our camps, like you're going to have something written up about you. So there's going to be feedback, which I think is very, very underrated or undervalued at some other camps. We try and do a good job with that.
And folks, like for instance, like I've been at you know, go to all the Maryland and Youngstown camps, and at Clint's camp last year, a couple of really good hockey players who were right about there at the NOL level who were able to come down and play for me at NCDC, and they're just having fantastic years. They're going to get college commitments, and so it's really nice to have that you know, movement from both sides.
Yeah, for sure. And then just briefly, I'll take briefly on the tier 3 and then turn it over to questions as well. Just, you know, make sure everyone is aware, you know, some players need, you know, you need that extra 4 or 5 months to develop. You might need that extra year to develop when you're making that jump from high school hockey, trying to get to tier 2, trying to get to tier 1. And there are a lot of really good tier 3 options out there, right? Rob, you just mentioned the EHL, and they do a tremendous job of putting players into NCAA Division III hockey. I know they always lead in that category. With the USPHL Premier and Elite, you know, they really have that same path, and then they also have that direct pathway, really working their way up to the NCDC or North American Hockey League. And then really the NA3HL is very similar to those leagues as well with the tier 3 model. You know, sometimes you get younger kids or older kids just need that year to develop. And they'll play in the NA3HL or tier 3 league and then really get that chance to develop at the next level. And as I'm sure all these guys can tell you, hockey's a little bit different, pretty unique sport, as really kids have the chance to develop until they're 19, 20 years old. So you have those kids that develop late, and sometimes they might have that tier 3 path. You really just never know. But hockey is unique in that way, really with late bloomers. So do you guys have anything to add? If not, we'll open it up to questions.
I would just say what you mentioned about EHL. I mean, if you're an 18-year-old hockey player and you're just not there, say in the NA or NCDC, EHL is a great league, and you want to play. You want to get minutes, you want to play, and you can have a great year in EHL and move up to the NAL the next year or the NCDC the next year, but you want to play and keep developing.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think that's crucial to understand that obviously it's kind of a long road, and the biggest jump we think in Youngstown as these young players are going through their long careers is from youth hockey or high school hockey into junior hockey. Your jump to junior hockey to college hockey is way easier in that aspect, and to Blake's point, and it comes at different times for kids. And, at the end of the day, you can really stunt a kid's development by bringing him in too soon and he doesn't play. And that's not good for anybody. So I would definitely stress, take your time, be patient, ask questions, and use resources around you. But there's no rush right now.
No, that's a really good point. And I worked with the North American Hockey League for years, so I can tell you I've seen the direct movement really between all the clubs with NCDC or the EHL leagues out east, moving players up to NCDC to North American Hockey League, and then NCDC North American Hockey League players moving up to USHL. So there's that path there quite a bit. It's not usually just players always jumping directly from as you mentioned, Brandon, right from midget hockey right to the USHLs. It's tough for a young player to do.
Yeah.
So on that note, we'll open it up for questions. Please, we'll try to just keep it in a good order. But please, if you have a question, feel free to speak.
Just for some clarity, I sent in chat, but since we can come off the mic here, or my son's 2008, been playing prep the last couple of years. He's on 16U and playing for the 18U varsity team. Also was signed to a junior A local club here as the youngest player in the league. Got 5 games in with them this year, but at 2008, am I understanding that's too quick? Here in Canada, we tend to want to push things faster, and I'm just trying to see, do I need to pump the brakes and keep him going, or he's registered for a combine with the NHL in Columbus. Do I keep that moving, or where at 2008, he'll be 15 still for the April combine. He's not even 16 until later this year. So what
I think when it comes to the one thing with the younger kids, and I tell my scouts and even Youngstown, if they're like, hey, I got a kid or a player we want to send you, and the first thing I tell them is can he handle the locker room in junior hockey? Like, how mature is he? How strong is he to handle the bumps? Like, the skill base is usually there these days with a lot of kids. So we look at can they handle the rigors of practice every day, balance school, and then like the hierarchy of a locker room. We have guys that are 20 years old, with full beards and like,
driving in.
That's part of it.
Yeah. No, and that with the junior A team, they evaluated them in the locker room with the guys, got feedback from the guys before they offered them a spot. They signed them to the full-time roster and basically January, New Year's Day was the day they signed them to the roster. So, but he was playing on the other 2 teams as well. So he's had a lot of hockey. So I'm just, again, wondering if I need to pump the brakes or keep going.
I think, well, we have 08s coming to our main camp, and it's like a fact finding mission for them as well. Like, okay, they're out there with older kids. How do they handle the I guess the physicality, the heavier battles? I think those are good tests to have at that age. You're at that age now where they should see, like, where do I fit in and learn how close am I, or what do I need to do to get to that level? It's a good eye opener for coaches and kids to see guys at that level. So I think it's always, do you have to go to 10 camps? Nope. Do you need to go to a couple? Sure. And like I said, the one thing with us, I can tell you the difference for 08s coming to my camp. Like it's funny how it works. If an 08 comes to my camp, that's the first thing the USHL guys want to know. Who are the youngest kids at your camp? And I circle or highlight that roster for them. I go, here are the kids that kind of fit your eyes, what you're looking for. And then our NCDC, our team and EHL, like they're okay with 20, 19, 18, 17-year-olds. So there's a lot of eyeballs on the young kids at our camp as well. So that's where we think we have the advantage for kids who come in that are younger. We've got weights that are coming this year, and that's what we're going to do right away is make sure our USHL guys get a chance to know like which kids are coming, where they're from, and get some eyeballs on them.
Okay.
But to answer your question, I think it just all depends on what are you missing. Are you doing 8 camps? Some families like think they have to go to 5, 6 camps, and my answer is you probably don't.
I was thinking too, the Columbus combine there was the one, and then I was trying to find another one for him, but he's, he played in the U.S. for the Tier 1 15U AAA team down there, and then moved up back to Canada just before Christmas, playing on the prep teams here. He's on the ice 5 days a week, 5 days a week in the gym. He gets.
We're going to keep moving on here.
Yeah, sorry.
I just don't want to.
Yep.
I want to be able to get.
I think
thank you very much.
You've got some, my email address is on our website for the Black Bears. So if you have more questions, shoot me an email and I can get you more information about stuff too.
Good question.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Jeff, do you have a question?
Yeah, I did. It's probably going to be a reiteration, just 1 year younger. Because trying to understand the landscape is with any of it is it's tough. But what's the best path for right now? Like maybe I'm thinking a little too far ahead, but maybe you can give me a little bit of guidance on where you feel like an 09 should start to show himself.
Rod, you go ahead. That's a good question for you.
Well, Jesse, it's it's important obviously to get with a good program, to get with a good coach. It's still about development and exposure. Winning is great, and you definitely want to be in a serious program that gets exposure. But I would look to get on a good midget program with a good reputation, with a coach who's an advocate for his players and has connections with junior coaches. And I would get into a couple of, whether it's futures camps or combines. And like I said earlier, if you're a good player, you're going to be noticed. But, he still has some time on his side as an 09. I would just make sure that he's has a good coach who pushes for him and makes him better every week as a hockey player.
All right. That's where we're at now. So I appreciate that. And it wouldn't hurt to just show up at a camp just to get the experience, right?
No, you don't have to do 8 of them, but I think, a couple of future showcases are very good.
Awesome. I appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much for your time.
Yep. And Heidi, you have a question? Heidi, you might be on mute.
Can I ask a question while she's trying to figure that out?
Yes, sir.
Real quick, I've got a 07 that hasn't done juniors yet, but that's his next step, and he's finally, I think he's there. Are there some good prospect camps or good showcases, hypothetically CCM or something else in the Northeast that we should be looking at this spring and summer to do?
I get that. I get asked that question a lot, and I think there's so many camps out there. I would look at who's going to it, what kind of feedback can you get, what's the purpose of the event you're going to. I always say if you're going somewhere and no one talks to you or gives you feedback, that's stuff that you can get ahead of time and see like what's the purpose of it, who's there, what schools, what junior teams, etc. And the good events have like a track record of you can see it on their website a lot of, hey, these schools are here, these programs are here watching, and then the next question is, okay, where do we go from there? So I think like there's so many, man, there's a lot of different camps to go to, and people ask what's the right one. I'm like, I think if you go somewhere where somebody knows you and they have an idea of who your kid is, and they're there watching, then I think that's a step forward.
Okay.
Going in blind can be tough.
Yeah, I
And
always like to tell families, like, you need to, I know it's tough with all these different options, and I'm not totally sure what's a good camp and not a good camp. But at the end of the day, I think you have to make a personal connection with somebody. To Clint's point, going into a camp and just signing up, and the website's great and says that every USHL team's there and every college team's there and every NHL team's there. I don't know if that necessarily does your kid any good. But if you're going to a camp here in Youngstown, and obviously you jumped on in our Zoom, there's a connection there, right? And there's an avenue for us to evaluate your son and give him some input as to, I don't know if you're ready for the USHL. Maybe, I can send you to Clint sort of path or something of that nature. But I would always ask questions. I think that's vitally important. I think it's kind of overlooked at times. At the end of the day, you guys are the drivers with your sons. So it's important to ask questions and kind of make that personal connection.
Thank you.
Yep, that's a really good question. Cheryl, you have a question?
I do. Thank you. First off, thank you so much for hosting this. It's been very informative and very educational, so I appreciate it. I have an 09, and for the NAHL, the combine, is that an invite only, or is that something that like they can do like for prospects just to kind of get the experience?
Yeah, if you go to the NAHL website, they actually have a link you can click on that has, like, NAHL combines, and it runs you through like the dates, the locations, and all that. So there's a process for that, and then for us, it's like we have futures camps as well with different ages as well on our website. So same type of thing where kids can sign up. And then our main camp is invite only, but once again, like once there's a connection and kids are at that age, like that's the beauty of our program is we're intertwined with so much of the youth hockey as well as like the junior hockey. So a lot of different avenues to take. But yeah, the NA does have open combines for kids to sign up. Yes.
I'll check out the website too for camps. We're trying to do something in the summer here to, just start getting some exposure and experience.
And what's his birth year again?
09. He was at Waterloo last summer. So
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
good.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
Good question. Katia, do you have a question?
Hi, yes, this is actually I'm Katya's husband. I have a question. So we have an 09 goalie, and I know, like, most people talk about players.
Always the goal.
So with the goalie, he's currently 09, and he's working hard, wants to pursue it very seriously. And any advice in terms of what avenues to go? He's not playing AAA yet, but the question is, we're in Maryland, so any advice would be helpful. I know it's kind of an open-ended question.
Yeah, in the Maryland area, like there's a lot of different things. Like we have our goalie coach, for instance, Jason Wolf. He's from Maryland. He works with a lot of Maryland kids. There are futures camps that we have with the Black Bears. That's where it starts, where kids come out, they're in our database, and then we get to meet the kids, have interactions. For instance, our very first year, Brandon was working with the Black Bears. So him and we did open camps, and there's kids that made our team that started off like as 09s that we recognized early, got to know them. They come skate with us in the summer and do different things through the Black Bears, and it's connections, right? Like, how do you get a job? A lot of times it's connections. I mean, as much as we think there's other processes, a lot of times it's who you know and being in front of somebody. So that's one way, is just being in front of scouts and coaches and introducing yourself, and the kids introduce themselves and learning how that works. It is networking as a part of it too, because in the end, it's impossible to find every good player. It really is. So we rely on scouts and also especially the local kids. Like, we like to know who the local kids are in Maryland, and have an idea who's out there and not miss out on.
I see.
So
Okay,
I
thank you.
think it's your networking. Whoever your coach is as well in Maryland, like, do they know anyone with the Black Bears organization? Can they reach out and make a call? Utilize your coaches that you have in youth hockey and say, who do you know? Here's what we want. How can you help us? And that'll tell you a lot about who you're playing for.
Thank you.
You bet.
Yep. Laura, do you have a question?
Yes, thank you very much for the opportunity to listen to the call today. Question for null prospects. What are the factors that you look at as most important for defensemen, and like, how does points scored over career factor into that as well?
I can tell you, I have guys that were the 4th or 5th option on the power play in youth hockey that are playing Division I hockey, and the other kids are not. So I think it comes down for me, how competitive are they? How coachable are they? Right now, we talk about this a lot in hockey. We can find skill. Skill is not a problem. The hard part to find are kids that face adversity well, handle adversity well, thrive under pressure, compete at our practices, compete at everything they do, and take direction well. There's a lot of really good players that we've let go in Maryland over the years based on not that they weren't good enough, is that they just weren't great teammates, maybe, or didn't want to do things the right way. And what does that mean? It means showing up, being a good teammate, having a high character. What's right is right, what's wrong is wrong, and we want those types of kids. And they're it's getting harder and harder to find, because I think that's just the way it is now. So it's like that in the workplace. So we value character, work ethic, drive with just enough skill. We think if you got that drive and work ethic with just enough skill, we can harness it and build it and turn you into something. And so we're very selective on who we allow into our locker room after we select our team. I hope that
I'll
answers
just
a little
echo.
bit.
I'm sorry. I'll just echo Clint on that. I mean, everybody, obviously players, you want them, everybody's highly skilled nowadays, but the things that really speak to me is when at camp or anywhere, when I'm watching players, I look at things like just their body language on the ice. Making a mistake out there isn't going to scratch your name off a list, but bad body language and not being supportive of your teammates is a big thing. And coaches notice it. So, I mean, hockey's a game of mistakes. It's not worrying about making a mistake out there. It's how you handle that mistake and react to it and face that adversity. So body language and just attitude really are big things.
Yep. As a defenseman too, it's really, how does your son defend? Does he win his battles when there's a one-on-one battle? Is he in the battle when there's a competition for a loose puck? Can he get up ice and complement the rush and help out, chip in offensively? And does he defend hard? So I think these days a lot of defensemen have to be able to do a little bit of everything. Skating's a big part for all players. I tell a lot of kids, your skating needs to improve. So my suggestion with some kids is work on skating all summer, not your skills. Because I got players on my team where their hands are elite and their skating is something they have to work on. So that's what we do. And I tell them in the summertime, work on your skating more than going to like skills development with your hands, because your hands aren't leaving, but you can get better at skating. So without seeing someone play as a defenseman, we look at, does he battle hard? Is he in battles? Meaning, does he go toward where the battles are and get involved? Does he have good stick on puck technique? And does he know how to get up ice and complement the rush? Or are some buzzwords and buzz phrases you'll hear from scouts at that level?
Yeah, I think too, like, I haven't seen your son obviously, but like, we've got a kid here in Youngstown who's a captain, who's played now 3 years, and he's over 170 games. And he has 30 points in those 170 games, and he averages about 20 minutes a night. And it's just it's one of those things where I think when you're building a team, you need a little bit of everything. And then if you want to even go a step further, when I'm evaluating a player, Clinton and I might see different things, and I might appreciate something that he doesn't, or vice versa. So it's kind of one of those things where, we always talk about, dance with the girl you brought. So whatever type of player you are, play to that ability the best way, and be an awesome teammate, and really just be the most competitive player on the ice. And that's something that we look for in Youngstown.
Yeah, we bring it up a lot. Be the best version of yourself, whatever you are. Don't try and impress someone with your skills if you're not that type of player. Just be the best version of yourself, and at some point, when you have enough eyeballs around you, they'll learn to appreciate what your son brings.
Thank you all very much.
Good
Very
question.
helpful.
Thank you.
And then just, when you guys are building a roster, we have a lot of, I'm sure, younger parents and kind of midget age parents on this call with those players looking to kind of move up. The NA trend's a little older, NCDC, USHL is a little younger. Do you guys have certain format you look at with having a certain amount of 16, 17-year-olds, 18, 19? Is that something you really, really look at with these younger kids who can make that jump?
In the North American League, like, it's a balance. We do like the younger kids for development purposes, and I think it helps. With getting schools excited about having an 06 that's on your power play and very productive. But we don't have like hey, you have to have X amount of 20-year-olds. Like, our league, you're allowed as many 20-year-olds as possible. So sometimes some teams go nuts with it, and they have almost 80% of the roster is 20, and they do it again the next year. Where we have a balance. We try to go. We're a bit older this year for the first time, but usually we're pretty staggered of the right amount of 20-year-olds with character and leadership abilities. 19, 18, 17. So it's rare you have 16-year-olds in our league. We have a few this year at the start, but we try and balance it out and have a bit of everything the way we are built. Brandon's got probably a different answer.
And then we
Go ahead,
have
Brandon.
in the USHL, we have age restrictions, so we're only allowed 3 20-year-olds. And then, we have a certain, I forget the number, but a certain number of 06s that we absolutely crush out of the park. And then we have 2 tenders on our team this year, so those kids are just turning 16. So in Youngstown, our philosophy is youth and young, and that's kind of how we want to be, and kind of how we're built.
And NCDC has we're allowed next year will be 7 20-year-olds, and we're certainly, as an organization, trying to get a little bit younger and hoping to have couple of 06s, maybe an 07 next year, but again, we have a cap of 7 20-year-olds with the league.
Yep. No, good feedback. And then James, you have a question?
Yeah. What do you think is the best route for an 06 goalie, and what should I be doing this summer?
I think the best route is where you're going to get minutes and practice time. And there's a combination of some programs, like the way I sell to goalies that we want here, James, is hey, we've got X amount of practices per week. We have a goalie coach on the ice twice a week. Our goalie coach does video work with our goalies. He's a phone call away with questions. I told goalies that play for us, I'm the most important thing for younger guys is to play. It doesn't matter if it's whatever program, ranking, all this. To me, it's are you getting on the ice to touch pucks as a player, and are you getting in the net to face pucks as a goalie? And of course, we like to see the save percentage and the goals against and all that, but a lot of times some of the best goalies are on the weaker teams. So to me, it depends. It's all about your playing time and what kind of development pathway they have for the program you're with, and what do they do for you.
And James, I think the goaltenders even have to have a little bit more patience than the players out there. There's only two or three goalies on a team, and a lot of times you see goalies really, hit their stride, get commitments when they're 19, 20 years old. So it just takes a little bit more patience and trust the process, and just like Clint said, go somewhere where you're going to play a lot, face a lot of shots, have a good goaltending coach, and just get better.
The biggest equalizer, James, for any athlete at our level is the place that takes zero skill. And it's probably one of the most important things is the weight room, training properly in the off season, diet, and training, because surviving the year isn't just games, it's practices as well. So that's a big one for me. We talked to a lot of young kids that practice with us, and we discussed like nutrition and their training in the off season as well and during the season.
All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Good luck.
And David, do you have a question?
Yeah, my son's an 08 goalie, and I'm wondering if you see the path for goalies moving up, if it happens at a little bit later age, or do they end up in your program for an extended period of time before they move on to college?
So we have usually for us, we've had kids we have an 06 this year, and he's really good. We see him being a Youngstown next year, and then either right to college or another year in the USHL, then college, depending on what school picks and what they're looking for. We've had kids come in, play 1 year, and go right to school. So I think it varies on what schools are looking for right now, their needs, and the abilities of the player in question. So there's no perfect answer. I brought in kids at 18, like their first year junior hockey was at 19, and then they played at 19, then 20, and went to play NCAA hockey after that. So it varies. It really does. There's no like perfect answer I can give you in that situation at all. It definitely varies every year.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think for us too, like the phase one draft, I know a lot of kids and parents are quite concerned about that, especially being your first year. And last year we were kind of running through the numbers. Out of the over 150 picks, there was only four goalies taken off the board. And then obviously the USHL as a whole is a pretty younger league than the others. And most of the older guys are the goalies. So, to me, I think it's like almost a 2 to 3 year delay on the goaltending front, if that makes sense for kids. Like for us, we have, 104 and an 05. So they're a little bit older, a little bit more mature. It's obviously tough to play juniors as a goalie, and they need time. And like Clint said, I think it just varies from team to team in terms of what colleges are looking for. Are they looking for a starter? Or are they just looking for, a third that's the guy that's going to practice and be a good teammate sort of thing?
Hey guys, John Porino here. If you got time for a question.
Yep.
Hey, first of all, thank you very much. Very informative. Appreciate your time. I have an 07 goalie, so stick with the goalie theme. A lot of the futures camps, combines that I see as I'm searching through, particularly here in Maryland where we are, they all say 2008 and lower. Can we reach out directly? Is that more geared towards the skaters, or is that everybody, and even goalies should be 2008?
Which camp is this for? Sorry.
Sorry. Well, I looked at the futures camp with the Black Bears, and there were a couple other ones that were spread out. There was another one in Detroit and another one in Boston, and most of them all list 2008 to 2010.
Right. So some of those are a bit kids in 07, correct?
I'm sorry, correct. Yeah, it is. Yep. He's in 07.
Who's in 07. So that falls into, so futures camps are going to be 08s and younger. And then now like the 07s are starting to come to like main camps, right? So if your kid is playing somewhere and you like the experience of going to a main camp, those are where the NAHL combines come into play. And then like at our main camp, the way it usually works is we have about 36 goalies, depending on how many teams come in. And then if we have like say 10 teams, we're taking 20 goalies out of that 36. So it's like a 2-day 4-ice session camp where you're evaluated, scouted. Our goalie coaches are there. And that's one process that we offer to kids like in the area too. And then the other thing that we haven't discussed yet is that we actually do have like invites through our scouts or some people like, hey, my kid plays here. How do I get him to a practice? Like we do have kids come to our practices throughout the season, whether it be Mercer, Youngstown, or Maryland. So there's a lot of different opportunities. If you want more information, once again, if you go to the Black Bears website, you can certainly find my email address on there and send me an email to ask more in depth. But that's one avenue some parents will take for kids is NAHL combines to our main camp as well.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Hi, John Lucci here. I have a question.
Yep.
So I have an 08. My wife and I are a big family. We live in Long Island, where it feels like you're kind of being outspent by everybody. So the only thing I have planned for this off season is the youth championship and possibly the state camp if he gets invited. He plays AAA now. He has for a few years. Is that an effective approach? Can there be success? I tend to rely on him. My message to him is typically always, make my phone ring. Go out there and be undeniable every weekend.
So here's what I think. Well, I brought this up earlier. I think it's okay if a kid and a family go, you know what? Let's go to a camp. Let's find out where we can go. Talk to somebody before you sign up. My kid wants to go. This is where we're trying to basically see where he stands. What are some options? I think that's okay to do something like that. I also go back again to his current coaches. So yeah, you want your kid to get scouted and seen and force someone to watch him and take a look. But there's so many scouts out there, and there's some junior hockey. Who's the head coach know, or who does the hockey director know? Usually there's a hockey director for programs, and they usually know the hierarchy of the talent level of your kid, the realistic level of where he stands, and where can he go to get some exposure and get some feedback. And I think that's, once again, that falls under your program hockey director and your team's head coach, and they should have some valuable insight on where your kid stands and what the next step is. And certainly they should have some input.
Okay. I mean, people are starting to get advisors and everything else. It just seems like it never ends.
They do, and my advice to kids at this age, if you're paying money to someone, that's crazy. You're on a Zoom call for a reason with teams that do this for a living. So I would imagine if you found a way to get on this, you can find a way to get in touch with us as well and get some different feedback or ask some more questions. And that's what our job is, to help out people in this region, in this area, to give them not a false sense of what they're going to get, but here's what you're facing. Here's how you get through it. And we can help navigate that. And it could be just going, let's go to the Black Bears camp and talk to Clint and meet some scouts, introduce ourselves, and then go on the ice and compete, and then know that you're going to be evaluated. I think that's a big part. Networking, just the bottom line, networking is a huge part of life, not just in business, but in sport. And advisors can certainly help. And this depends what they want from you too, right? Like some families pay and some refuse to pay. I've had players on my team played me for 2 years, never had an advisor. They're playing Division I, and they were not high-end kids that had all the teams after them. Like, they were just good hockey players that we noticed at one of our camps through a scout that brought them there as a free agent, and that started the whole process because they knew somebody.
And is it John is your first name?
Yes.
And you're what birth year is your son?
He's an 08. He plays for PAL Junior Islanders, which Black Bear is part of now.
And I know John, like PAL and Mike Marcow there is a great
Yeah,
coach,
yeah.
and they have a futures camp. I'm not sure of the date, but I think they're gonna have a couple of I don't know, Brandon, if you're there, or I think maybe a couple of Youngstown guys, a couple of college coaches. So that's always a nice place, and it'll be right on Long Island.
Oh yeah, yep.
Yeah, I think it's another thing too. I know, youth hockey's kind of turned into a little bit of a track meet with kids, on the ice every day, and they're playing spring tournaments. They got the summer showcase, and they're going to main camp, and they're going to a college camp. And I think that's great, and I love the passion, but I do think it's good to have a little bit of a reset in the summer and take some time away from the rink. And kind of focus your thoughts and your energy on, you know, 1 or 2 camps or 3 camps, and not try to get the rock band tour around the United States. So it's good to really kind of evaluate for you and your family as to what, you know, you kind of think makes the most sense to you guys. And then once again, ask questions. I know there's a director of some sorts at each camp.
Okay, thank you.
And then also just on that, you know, with the THF, we do try to offer a webinar each month, you know, for next season. You know, we just recommend, you know, paying attention to the website and social media when we do advertise those. Because there are a lot of good resources, and you mentioned, you know, advisors, agents. We had an hour-long presentation from an NHL agent, kind of walking through the differences and things along those lines. So, you know, we just recommend, you know, pay attention to the website so we can keep continuing to build these webinars, so we get more participation and we can get the information to everybody.
I drop a quick one in.
Yep.
Yeah, it'd probably pretty much be yes or no. I think I know the answer. But is juniors the truest path to college hockey and the next steps?
Is it a true step?
Is it the truest path? Like, is it the
Yes.
maybe I'm not answering it right. You know what I mean? Like, is it the truest way to college hockey and the next steps?
Whether you're going Division 3 or Division 1 hockey, it's almost a necessary step. There's rarely any kids that go from prep school or 18U AAA to university. It's such a big step. Like, if you think about it, in junior hockey, you can start at 16, play till you're 19, then go to school, and you're still going against 23-year-olds. So going from 17 or 18 right to university is like Macklin Celebrini is rare. You don't see many guys 17 going into college dominating or even playing. So it's almost like a necessary step, unlike sports like baseball, football, where they don't have those avenues. That's the advantage for some of the schools. That even a kid we get kids to us that are already committed, but they know they're in a 2-year process, 1 year with us, 1 year USHL, and then off to school to go. So it really is. I get numbers are like, I want to say like 90% of kids in college get there from junior hockey.
And I think the average age, and Clint and Brandon, maybe you know the exact number. I mean, I think it's about 20 years old as the average freshman in Division 1, and I think it's actually even a little bit, you know, slightly higher even for Division 3. So everyone's taking gap years. It's just the way the landscape of hockey. It's just the way it is now.
Correct.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you,
every
guys.
school wants their kids to kind of go into juniors and play 1 to 2 years, or maybe even 3 in some cases, just to mature and, you know, get stronger and all that stuff.
Yep, good question. We'll take a few more questions, and we'll try to keep it at an hour. Do we have another question? Well, making it easy.
There's anyone in the chat got questions?
Yeah, I think there's just saw a question pop up.
So someone asked about a draft or a tender. So the draft is, I'll tell you from a draft perspective, we're allowed a 30-man roster to start the year. So if I got 20 players returning, and a tender is a written contract through the league where I get 7. So I get, like, say 16 players returning and 7 kids I get the tender, which means you tender with me. That means you can't play anywhere else in the North American Hockey League. You can still play junior somewhere else, but you can't play in our league anywhere else but Maryland. So I get 7 tenders. If I have 17 returning players, that gets us 24. And that means I get 6 draft picks. That gets me to 30. So that's how the draft process works, and the tender process, and the way our draft works. Like, it's not like the NHL where I can draft a kid, hold his rights for 2 years. The USHL is different. They can hold on to a kid's rights for more than a year. Where then Brandon can explain the full process, but for us, if I draft a kid, the expectation is he's going to play for me this year. And if he doesn't, then I lose his. I don't hold on to his rights if I release him before the season starts. So those are the differences between a tender and a draft pick.
Yeah, so for us, the kind of same rules apply. The only main big difference would be that in our league we have like a retention list where so we can store I don't know the total number breakdown, but for this year we could have 2004 birth years and I think like 5 or 6 06s and a couple other like 07s and stuff like that. So basically those kids are drafted by Youngstown. Their rights are in Youngstown in the USHL. And for whatever reason, if they're just not ready to come or they're finishing up school somewhere, they can go and play for a different club. I know Clint talked about it. Like we have 3 kids that are on our list right now that are playing in Maryland. And then from a tender standpoint, each team is allotted 2 tenders in the USHL, and it's something that you don't have to use. But those 2 tenders are the same agreement that Clint talked about. And the only catch for us is that the kids that you tender have to play over, I think it's 65% of your games, and they have to be with you. Can't be moved. And then you just, if you go ahead and tender a player, you would lose your first pick in the phase 1 and then your second pick in phase 1 of the draft.
The other question was someone asked about coming off an injury and not be able to go full speed until June. I mean, injuries are part of hockey. We've had kids this year and years past where they were injured, didn't set back their pathway. In fact, and it gave some of the motivation to get stronger and do other things if they could within reason. So be healthy. Don't go somewhere where you just got off an injury and then you want to make an impression. I would be going in with full strength, full speed, and fully confident that they're strong enough to go somewhere and compete. So that was one question about being healthy enough or not being ready till June. There's a lot of time in hockey, and if they're good enough, someone's going to take a look at them at some point, and I don't think that's a huge setback at all.
Yep, and we will post a recording on the meeting on the THF website, so it will be available to everybody. We did get a question about expect a flood of Canadian players in the NCDC with the NCAA rule change. That's digging real deep into it. We'll save that for a later date, I guess you could say.
Yeah, let's save that.
Yeah,
that's a long conversation.
It's a big web.
Any other questions here before we wrap up?
Yeah, what's your view on penalty minutes?
Depends what kind. I mean,
lazy
to
penalties,
me,
no.
I look at it like if you're taking silly penalties where you're running around and trying to hit kids for no reason or just trying to play hard nose. Like, I think there's different ones. Like, we don't frown upon it, but I always tell my guys, like, at this level, even are the penalties that are aggressive where you're finishing your checks, we can live with those. If you're just running around to run around or slashing kids back the legs or from angles that are deemed to be cheap, like I like guys who play face up hockey where if you're gonna hit someone, like it's face up and they know you're coming. We do teach also rink awareness, so that's part of it. But I think it depends. I got a guy on my team this year with 126 penalty minutes, and I love him as a player, and he's 6'4" and he can't afford to not play hard, and he gets in trouble because he's big, and some of the hits are not dirty. He's just big. So I tell him that you can't change your game, play the same way. You have to maybe learn how to figure out different referees that are on the ice in our league. But I don't know. I don't think it's frowned upon by most coaches that I associate with, unless a kid just runs around trying to hurt people. Then that's not conducive toward becoming a better hockey player. But hitting's allowed. They wear visors. There's still an element of the game that has some toughness to it for sure.
Yeah, and just to echo Clint's, I'm the same way. I tell my guys I'll never get upset or scream over aggressive, honest, hard. If a ref calls a penalty on a hard hockey play where you're fighting, battling for the puck, never going to scream at you for that. I will if it's a lazy penalty, stop moving your feet, a cheap shot, a retaliation where it's not needed. That that you're gonna hear from me, but if it's hard, good, clean hockey, penalties are fine. They happen.
Yeah, we talk about, you know, team penalties, team tough penalties, and kind of selfish penalties. And I think, you know, every kid kind of knows what the difference is. And you know, for us, it's something that, you know, we've obviously watched your son play, so we'd be able to tell what kind of penalty minutes they would be, and we're not I guess we're not afraid of penalty minutes.
Thank you.
Good question. And we got just a few more questions in the chat, just regarding camps. And this is one of those things, you know, please do your homework. You know, the coaches touched on a little bit ago. You know, go to the league websites, go to the team websites. You're gonna find the best options available there. And then also, as they mentioned, use your hockey director, use your coach as a resource. Really get the best information on those camps. And with that, we'll wrap it up for the night. Coaches, do you guys have any last minute advice here?
Oh, thank you. Like it is a process. It's be patient. A lot of kids and families want their commitments at 16. And they want their pathway set by the time they're 17. And I've had kids committed at 16 and they're no longer playing hockey because they got everything too early and they didn't know how to do all the other things, and they might have taken some wrong steps. So I think be patient with it. And I've had kids that had nothing until they're 20 years old. Now they're playing Division I hockey in like an Ivy League school. So there's a process for everyone, a place for everyone. And that's the one thing I love about Black Bear Sports Group, is that we truly have a pathway for the junior, the youth hockey, the junior hockey, and getting kids to Division I or Division III programs. We've got every step it takes.
And I'll just say, it sounds simple, but you know, I don't care if the player's 12 or 17, they should still be playing for the love of the game and not just to get to some destination. And the players should be the ones dragging their parents to the rink and not the other way around in these camps. And I think Brandon mentioned it earlier. I think it's good to take some time off in the summer and recharge, but you know, practice and skating, it should be fun for these guys.
The whole process, not
Yep.
just the games or the goals, like the off ice component. And I love kids like that.
Yeah, I think too, just, I know you guys have kind of said it all, and you're totally spot on, is just, you know, obviously just be a good person too. I spend more time with our team than my own family. And the last thing, you know, any of us want to do is have to deal with a kid that's kind of a pain or something like that. You really won't make it that far. I know everyone's talented, and those are kind of the separating factors when it comes down to it.
Thank you, coaches.
Yep.
Thanks, Blake. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Yep. Everybody have a good night. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Blake.
Thank you.
Thanks, Blake.
Coach Clinton, I sent you an email
you.
already.
Okay, thank you. I'll take a
Thank
look
you.
at it.
Thanks, guys.
You bet.
Thank you.